The capture smoke rose from the broken ground as fire swallowed the edge of the fallen colony. Black clouds covered the sun and turned the sky into ash. The machines of war, both human and alien, lay silent now, scattered across the battlefield. Like bones of a dying world, metal twisted in strange shapes. Human blood mixed with alien oil. The air smelled of burning flesh and defeat. In the middle of the wreckage, a figure crawled toward a ruined wall, her arm dragging uselessly behind her. Her face was covered in dirt and sweat. She could barely breathe, but her eyes still burned, with the fire of someone who refused to die. Her name was Lena, a scout with the resistance force. She had watched her entire unit fall one by one in the ambush. No backup had come. No ships had answered the distress signal. She knew they were gone. She knew she was alone now. The enemy moved across the battlefield slowly, checking bodies, searching for signs of life. Their armor was heavy and dark. Their weapons hummed with strange energy. These were not soldiers born of war. They were creatures bred to conquer. Their empire had spread through the stars for centuries. Planet after planet, species after species, they all fell. Resistance meant death. Surrender meant slavery. Escape was a fantasy. Lena tried to push herself farther into the rubble, but pain shot through her side. She had lost too much blood. Her mind blurred in and out of focus. Before she could move again, heavy footsteps stopped near her head. She turned just in time to see the long shadow of an alien soldier fall across her broken body. Its helmet stared down at her, its voice cold and empty as it spoke in a language she barely understood. Then the world went black. When Lena opened her eyes again, the sky was gone. No fire, no battlefield. Only a hard floor beneath her and cold metal walls around her. She was inside a cell, deep within something large and unnatural. Her body ached. Her hands were tied behind her. A soft light pulsed in the ceiling above, and a soft hum filled the air like a quiet machine breathing. Her mind struggled to remember where she was. The resistance base was too far now. She had failed her mission. The data chip hidden in her armor was probably lost. But then she remembered something. Just before the final blast hit her team, she had thrown the chip into a cracked vent. Maybe someone would find it. Maybe the information would not die with her. A door opened with a hiss. 2 guards entered. They were tall, covered in black armor that looked like living stone. They grabbed her arms and pulled her to her feet. She didn't resist. Not yet. Her legs barely held her up. The pain was too deep. But her eyes remained. Come. They took her down a narrow hallway lined with glowing symbols. The air was colder here, sharper, filled with something that felt unnatural. At the end of the hall stood a figure without armor. Its skin was pale gray. Its eyes were deep and cold, like frozen glass. This was no soldier. This was an interrogator. The creature looked at her without emotion. It did not smile. It did not blink. It simply watched her like someone observing a tool, not a person. Then it spoke. Your kind is weak, it said in a flat tone. You fight with fire and bones. You bleed like animals. And yet you waste time resisting us. Lena said nothing. She kept her eyes locked on his, not in anger, not in fear. Just calm silence. You will speak, the interrogator said again. You will tell us what your people planned. Or you will die screaming. Lena still said nothing. The guards threw her into a chair. Strange wires hung from the ceiling. Lights blinked on the walls. She heard a deep sound from the machine beside her. It felt alive somehow, like a hungry thing waiting to feed. Then the pain began. Her mind twisted. Her muscles screamed. Her memories blurred. The machine didn't just hurt her body, it tried to reach inside her thoughts. It showed her visions of failure, of her home burning, of her family crying. It twisted her fears and used them like weapons. But even in the worst moments, When the world felt like it was breaking around her, Lena held onto one thing. A single image. A small hill behind her childhood home, where she used to watch the stars. That memory became her shield. Her breath slowed. Her mind cleared. The pain still hurt, but it didn't own her. The interrogator watched the screen with growing confusion. Other prisoners had broken within hours, some within minutes. This human held on longer than expected. Her mind refused to crack. Her silence was not fear. It was choice. She is resisting mental sync, the machine said. Emotional barriers. High neural activity increasing. Possible risk of damage to the subject. Proceed, the interrogator said. The machine pushed harder. The visions grew stronger. But Lena's mind kept returning to that hill, the stars, the cold grass, the sound of her brother's laughter, the warmth of her mother's voice. You cannot win, the interrogator said again. Your species will fall. You are the last of your team. They all died for nothing. Lena looked up at him. Her voice came out slow but steady. Maybe they did, she said. Or maybe they died buying time for something bigger. The interrogator narrowed his eyes. What do you mean? She smiled. You'll see. Her voice carried no fear. No pride, just certainty. The kind of certainty that only comes from someone who has lost everything and still chooses to stand. The guards dragged her back to her cell. The door shut behind her. She sat against the cold wall, breathing slowly. She knew they would come again. She knew it would get worse, but they hadn't broken her. Not yet. And in a hidden corner of that broken colony, deep inside a vent, a tiny data chip blinked silently, waiting for someone to find it. Waiting for the rest of humanity to answer. The test begins. Time passed without measure inside the alien prison. No windows, no clocks, no sound of nature. Only the quiet hum of machines and the footsteps of armored guards. The cold light never changed. Every moment felt the same as the last. Yet Lena kept count in her mind. Each time they entered her cell, she made a mark on the floor with a chipped piece of metal. It wasn't perfect, but it helped her stay connected to something real. They came for her again. The same 2 guards. The same tight grip on her arms. She didn't fight back. Not because she was broken, but because she was waiting. Waiting for her moment. Every time they dragged her down the hall, she studied. The patterns on the walls, the shape of the locks, the way the guards moved. Pain was one thing. Knowledge was another. And knowledge stayed with her. Inside the chamber, the machine waited again. Wires hung like webs. The air smelled like burnt circuits and oil. The interrogator stood behind the glass, calm and patient, like always. His eyes studied her face, searching for weakness. His voice echoed through the speaker, calm and sharp. You are wasting your strength, he said. No one is coming. Your world is silent now. Your kind is not built for this war. Lena didn't answer. Her eyes stared back at him, steady and still. He didn't deserve her voice. The machine activated. Electricity surged through her skin. Images filled her mind, not her own, but false visions meant to twist her memories. She saw her brother fall to the ground, shot through the chest. She saw her mother crying in the rain, calling her name. She saw the stars go black. She knew none of it was real, but the pain felt true. The sorrow clawed at her heart. She closed her eyes and focused. She remembered the small garden outside her childhood home, the one her father used to water each morning. She remembered the scent of fresh leaves, the cool wind before a storm, the warmth of her sister's hand. These thoughts became her shield again. Her body shook, but her spirit held. The interrogator leaned closer to the screen. Increase intensity, he ordered. The machine responded. Wires moved closer to Lena's skin, glowing brighter. The pain changed. Now it was inside her head, like a scream without sound. Her muscles tensed, her breath caught in her chest. She thought she might pass out, but then a sound reached her ears. Not from the machine, not from the interrogator, but from inside her own mind. It was laughter, a memory from long ago. Her brother laughing at something small and stupid. It made her lips curl for just a second. A real smile. The interrogator saw it. He stared at the screen unsure. "Why do you smile?" he asked. Lena opened her eyes. Her voice cracked, but it still came out clear. "Because you don't get it," she said. "You think you're winning, but you never had a chance." The interrogator didn't answer. He ended the session and left the chamber. The guards returned her to her cell. This time they threw her harder than before. She hit the wall and slid down to the floor. Blood ran down her cheek, her ribs ached, but her eyes still burned with that same fire. Alone in the silence, Lena leaned her head back against the wall and breathed slow. She had seen the look in the interrogator's eyes. Confusion, doubt. That was a win, no matter how small. Elsewhere across the stars, whispers of her story had begun to spread. Not through official channels, not through screens or broadcasts, but through quiet voices in hidden places. A smuggler spoke of a human who resisted the mind machine. A captured pilot said a name before he died. In a mining camp on a frozen moon, a group of rebels lit a small fire and spoke of the woman who would not break. The resistance had not forgotten her. Some thought she was dead. Others believed she was still fighting somewhere. Either way, her name had become something more than a name. It had become a sign, a symbol. Proof that humans were not so easy to crush. In one corner of the alien station, a young guard watched the security feed in silence. His name was not known. His face was hidden behind the same armor as the others, but something about Lena had reached him. He saw the way she looked back at the interrogator. Not with fear, but with pity. It made him feel something strange, something dangerous. He had seen many prisoners over time. None lasted long. Most cried. Most begged. Some went quiet forever, but not her. Every time she came back from the machine, she looked more alive than before. It made no sense. It broke every rule. And it made him wonder if maybe everything he had been told was wrong. He kept watching. He didn't speak. But in his heart, something had begun to shift. Back in the cell, Lena sat still. Her breath steady, her thoughts focused. She didn't know what day it was or how long she had been there. But she knew one thing. They hadn't won. They hadn't even come close. She thought of her people, the voices of her team, the hope in her commander's eyes, the stars above Earth. She thought of all the worlds still fighting, still hoping, still waiting. And in that quiet moment, she whispered a promise, not to the walls, not to the guards, not to the enemy, but to herself. "You will not take me," she said. Her voice was low, but it carried power. Even the silence seemed to pause for a breath. The war was far from over. But one thing had become clear. They had tried to break her, but humanity was still fighting back. Echoes of humanity in the deep silence of space. A broken satellite drifted near the edge of the old human colony. Its panels were cracked, its signal was weak, but it carried something priceless. A burst of light blinked once, then again. Hidden within that blink was a message, short-coded, difficult to trace. But someone was watching. Far from the alien prison, beyond the grasp of their warships, a hidden resistance base picked up the signal. A young technician barely older than 20 leaned forward, eyes wide, as the screen came alive. Her fingers moved, fast decoding line after line. Then she froze. The name on the screen made her heart skip. It was Lena. They had thought her lost, captured, maybe killed, but here it was. A fragment of her voice, a sliver of her words buried deep in a transmission. She had hidden it before her capture, just as she planned. The technician ran through the corridor, shouting for the commander. Inside the war room, old maps flickered with red lines, showing lost territories, fallen cities, broken fleets. The commander stood silent, arms crossed, face hard with time and worry. But when he heard the name, his eyes changed. He leaned over the screen and listened. It wasn't much, only a few words, but they were enough. "They're watching us," she had said. "But we're watching them too. Tell them not to stop. Tell them I'm not finished." The message hit like thunder. Around the room, heads lifted, hearts stirred. Soldiers who had once felt tired now stood straighter. Engineers working on damaged ships moved faster. Something had returned to them. Not weapons, not ships, not numbers. Something more powerful. Hope. Lena was alive, inside the alien facility. The interrogator sat in the dark chamber, eyes locked on the screen. For days now, she had refused to break. Every method had failed. Mental pressure, emotional manipulation, neural pain, nothing worked. Instead of weakening, she seemed to grow stronger. Her mind resisted every trick, every illusion. "This one is not normal," the interrogator muttered. "Her species should not be capable of such endurance. Her biology is simple. Her mind should not resist." The machine responded with cold logic. Subject: displays high resistance to psychological reformation. Emotional center remains intact. Identity stable. Possible cause unknown. He stared at her image as she slept on the cold floor of her cell. Her face was bruised, her body weak, but her breathing was calm. The interrogator had seen warriors broken with less, but she stayed whole. It unsettled him. Not because of fear, but because of something worse. Doubt. He stood and left the room, without a word. Meanwhile, the young alien guard continued to observe. Every day he watched her face, every moment she returned from the chamber. He saw her pain, but he also saw something deeper. Her spirit never faded. It made him remember stories he had heard in secret about the early days of the Empire, before conquest, before control. Back when his kind had their own dreams. He began to question things he had never dared question. Why did they fear humans so much? Why did one prisoner shake the core of such a vast empire? He asked quietly among his own, but no one answered. Fear kept their mouths shut. One night as he passed Lena's cell, he slowed his steps. She sat with her back against the wall, eyes open. She looked at him, not with hate, not with anger, just a kind of quiet knowing. "You're not like the others," she sighed. "You don't walk the same. You don't stare the same." The guard didn't speak. He wasn't supposed to. Talking to prisoners was forbidden. But something inside him cracked. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Why do you keep fighting?" he asked. "You cannot win. Your people are scattered, your cities are gone. What are you holding on to?" She smiled, not a big smile, just enough. "I hold on to the truth," she said. "I hold on to every hand that ever helped another. Every story of someone who stood back up. You don't understand what that means, but I do. And one day you will too." The guard stepped back, heart pounding, unsure of what he had done. Her words stayed in his head long after he walked away. They echoed louder than orders, louder than fear. Elsewhere across the stars, words spread quietly through the resistance networks. Lena's signal had reached them. Cells began to awaken. Old allies returned. Smugglers carried messages between systems. Traders passed coded words in markets. Miners whispered her name in tunnels. The resistance was not dead. It had only been waiting. In a hidden valley on a distant moon, a group of fighters gathered around a fire. Their leader spoke of Lena, the one who endured, the one who gave them reason again. They sharpened their weapons, repaired their armor, loaded their ships. Not because they were ordered to, but because they believed again. Inside her cell, Lena sat with eyes closed, breathing slow, steady. Her mind focused not on pain, not on fear, but on the voices of her past. She remembered laughter, the soft rhythm of her mother's heartbeat, the songs her people sang before battle. She remembered everything they wanted her to forget. She had become more than a soldier. She had become a flame. And flames could spread. The interrogator returned once more. He stood behind the glass watching her. "You are not special," he said. "You are alone. No one is coming." Lena opened her eyes and stared back. "That's where you're wrong," she said. "They are coming. And you're not ready." The lights flickered for a moment. Somewhere deep inside the alien network, something moved. A signal traced through their systems, a silent thread crawling unnoticed. It carried no weapon, no virus, only a message. "We are still here. We are not finished, and we remember." The alien station floated in silence above a dead moon. Its black metal surface reflected no light, its shape cold and lifeless like a forgotten relic of war. Inside its walls, the air felt thick and heavy, as if something was building, something unseen but strong. The guards walked their paths, weapons in hand, faces hidden behind masks. They followed orders, they followed fear. Lena sat in her cell, awake in the quiet. Her eyes had grown sharp. Every sound, every vibration in the walls, every flicker in the lights, she noticed everything. Her body was weak, but her mind was clear. She had stopped counting the days. Time no longer mattered. What mattered now was the feeling deep inside her. Chest a quiet hum, a rhythm she could not explain. It told her something was near. Across the galaxy, resistance fighters moved like shadows. No banners, no horns, only small teams with purpose. One of those teams now raced through the blackness of space, heading toward the prison. Their ship was small, fast, armed with stolen weapons and hope. At its center sat their leader, a woman with silver streaks in her hair and fire in her eyes. She had fought beside Lena before. She had lost half her team when Lena was captured. Now she had returned for the one they called the Ember, the one whose flame had not died. They had studied the prison layout, gathered fragments from old maps, hacked alien systems using code wrapped in human logic. It was risky, almost foolish, but the risk meant nothing now. Lena's survival had done more than any fleet. Her pain had awakened thousands. Her voice had made even the silent remember. Inside the prison, the young alien guard stood near the control panel, hands tight around the rail. He had watched Lena for days now, watched her suffer, watched her endure. Her words still echoed in his head louder each time he tried to ignore them. He had once believed in the strength of his empire, but now he questioned everything. If one human could stand against all this and still remain herself, then maybe the empire was not as strong as it claimed. He looked left, then right. No one watched him. His hand reached out, pressed a small switch under the panel. It was a silent act, a tiny action, but it opened a hidden path inside the prison walls. He turned and walked away, heart pounding, unsure what would come next, but certain it had to begin. Far above the station, the resistance ship reached the edge of sensor range. Alarm should have sounded, but none came. The signal blocker had worked. For now, the leader gave a silent nod, and the ship dropped into darkness, falling fast toward the moon where the prison orbited. Inside the ship, soldiers checked weapons, gripped old tokens, kissed worn photos. Each of them had lost something to this war. Now they were here to take something back. Inside the cell block, lights flickered again. Lena noticed it. This time she smiled, not because of the lights, but because of the silence that followed. It was not the silence of death, but the silence before a storm. The walls shook slightly. Somewhere far below, an explosion ripped through the outer ring. Emergency sirens screamed, red lights flashed across the corridors. Guards shouted, running toward the breach. Fire danced through the halls. Smoke poured through the vents. The young guard ran toward Lena's cell. He entered the code quickly, his hands shaking. The door slid open. For a second, they only stared at each other. Then he reached out and helped her up. "I cannot stay," he said. "But you must go." Lena nodded. No words, no thanks, only purpose. She leaned on him for a step, then found her own strength. The pain in her side flared, but she kept walking. Down the hall. Around the corner, past the broken alarms. Smoke covered the walls now. Screams filled the air. The resistance team met her halfway. The leader stepped forward, eyes wide at the sight of Lena, still standing, still breathing, still burning. She touched her shoulder gently and nodded. Let's end this. They moved fast through the chaos. One by one, they cleared the corridors. The alien guards tried to stop them, but they fought with rage and precision. Lena picked up a weapon from a fallen guard and followed. Her hands shook, but her aim held. She did not fire to kill. She fired to move forward. The group reached the exit hatch near the launch bay. Behind them, flames rose higher. Ahead, the escape ship waited, engines hot and ready. They ran across the open floor, dodging sparks and falling debris. Lena's steps slowed. She turned once and looked back through the smoke. Across the hangar, other prisoners stared at her. Human faces, alien faces, all bruised, all broken, all silent. But when they saw her walking free, when they saw the enemy fall before her, they began to move. Chains fell. Voices rose. One by one, they followed. The guards had lost control. She turned again and stepped onto the ship. The hatch closed behind her. The engines roared, and the ship lifted into the stars. Inside the ship, Lena leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Her chest ached, her head spun, but her heart stayed calm. Around her, the crew sat in silence, watching her. No one spoke. They did not need to. They had seen what she had done, what she had endured, what she had become. She had not been saved. She had walked out, not as a prisoner, but as a message. And far below, the station burned. The flame had spread. The spark of defiance, the stars above the rebel base, looked quiet and cold, as if they had no memory of war, no memory of blood. But below those stars, people moved with new purpose. The resistance camp, once silent, now buzzed with voices, with hands, building with tools, shaping weapons, ships, radios, armor. The stolen ship that had carried Lena home rested in the center, surrounded by guards, engineers, medics, all moving fast and focused. Lena walked slowly through the narrow path between tents and machines. Her steps were steady, but each movement sent pain through her ribs. Her face still carried cuts, her arms wrapped in cloth, but her eyes burned with the same fire that had never left her. Fighters turned as she passed, nodding in respect, saying nothing. They did not see a soldier. They saw something stronger. They saw a survivor who had brought hope back from the dead. Inside the main tent, the commanders waited around a long table, covered in maps, codes, and names of lost cities. They had planned dozens of attacks over the years. Many failed, many cost too much. But now they had something they had not felt in a long time: unity. Behind Lena stood the leader of the rescue team, her voice clear and calm. "We broke their walls," she said. "We took their prisoner, we took their pride. And now we know they can bleed." The room stayed quiet for a moment. Then one by one, the commanders agreed. The time to hide was ending. The time to strike had come. Lena stepped forward and pointed at one name on the map. A supply hub deep in the enemy sector, where ships refueled and prisoners were processed. The heart of the machine. She did not raise her voice. She did not shout. She only said one sentence: "That is where we go next." Outside the camp, the words spread like fire. Across planets, moon stations, drifting colonies, small rebel cells began to move. Messages reached hands that had almost given up. Names long thought lost returned to the fight. Miners sharpened drills, engineers rewired drones, smugglers hid weapons beneath cargo. All of them remembered Lena. All of them remembered her silence, her pain, her walk through the fire. Inside the Empire, the news traveled slower, filtered through fear, twisted by lies. The High Command claimed victory, claimed that the human prisoner had been executed. But beneath their perfect walls, rumors spread. A soldier had turned off the cameras. A team had escaped with the prisoner. And the station that held her was now dust. Inside a dark chamber, the interrogator faced a council of his kind. They asked no questions. They only watched him with cold, still eyes. He spoke without pride, without excuse. He told them everything. About the human who did not break. About her mind, about her memories, about her refusal. He told them how the machine failed, how fear did nothing, how pain lost its edge. And when he finished, the council said only one thing: "You have seen what we could not." He did not know if that was punishment or reward. He only knew that he could not forget her. That even now, when he closed his eyes, he saw her standing in silence, with blood on her skin and light in her eyes. The next day, the Empire sent new orders. Crack down on rebels, destroy hiding places, silence voices. But the voices did not stop. They grew louder, they grew sharper. Even alien worlds once loyal now looked to the humans with new thoughts. If one could resist, maybe others could follow. Back on the rebel base, the time had come to move. Lena stood at the front of the launch bay, dressed in new armor, shaped not for beauty, but for function. Her body still carried pain, but she did not slow. The crew stood beside her, ready, engines warm, weapons armed. They did not wait for speeches. She walked onto the ship and took her seat at the front. The stars waited beyond the glass. Not cold this time, not silent. They looked alive. The ship lifted slow at first, then faster, breaking through the clouds. And into the void. As they flew, Lena closed her eyes for a moment. Not to sleep, not to rest, but to remember. She saw the faces of those who died beside her. She saw the hill near her home. She saw the prison walls. And then she saw what could come next. A world without chains, without war, without the silence of fear. One by one, the rebel ships followed. Dozens, then hundreds. A fleet born not from power, not from wealth, but from pain and will. From something the enemy had never understood. The Empire had machines, ships, weapons built from stars. But the humans had something older, something deeper. A heart that would not stop beating. They had tried to break her, but she had stood. They had tried to silence her, but her silence had spoken louder than any scream. They had tried to erase her, but she became something they could never destroy. She became the proof that humans fight back and never stop. The end.